You think you can't change because you lack discipline. No, you can't change because your brain believes your old life is safer than your new one. I want you to do something for me. Pause for a moment and ask yourself one simple question. If I know exactly what I need to do to improve my life, why am I still the same person? Think about it honestly. You know you should exercise more. You know you should stop procrastinating. You know you should spend less time scrolling and more time building your future. You know you should work on your dreams, improve your health, fix your relationships, and become the person you're truly capable of becoming. You know all of these things, so why don't you do them? Are you lazy? Do you lack discipline? Are you simply not motivated enough? Probably not, because if information alone changed people, almost everyone would already be living their dream life. Think about it. There are thousands of books about success, millions of motivational videos, endless podcasts, unlimited information, and yet anxiety is increasing, burnout is increasing, depression is increasing. People know more than ever before, but somehow they feel more stuck than ever before. And the strangest part, the people who feel most stuck are often the most intelligent ones, the ones who have read the books, the ones who understand the problem deeply, the ones who can explain to others exactly what they need to change, but still nothing moves. Why? Because your problem is not an information problem, it's a nervous system problem, and understanding this might completely change the way you see yourself, and more importantly, the way you change yourself. Your brain was not designed to make you happy. It was not designed to make you successful. It wasn't designed to help you achieve your biggest dreams. Your brain has one primary responsibility: to keep you alive. And to your brain, survival means safety, and safety means familiarity. Your brain doesn't ask, will this make me successful? It asks, have I been here before? If the answer is yes, your brain relaxes. If the answer is no, your brain becomes cautious. This is why people often stay in situations that make them miserable, because miserable can still feel familiar, and familiar feels safe. I know that sounds strange, but think about the last time you tried to make a real change. Maybe you started waking up early for a week. Maybe you committed to eating better. Maybe you promised yourself you'd finally start working on that idea, and for a few days it felt amazing. You felt proud. You felt different. And then something quiet happened, not a dramatic failure, just a slow return back to old sleep patterns, back to old food choices, back to old distractions. And you probably blamed yourself, but you weren't being weak. Your brain was doing exactly what it was designed to do. It was pulling you back to safety. Here's what makes this even more fascinating. Scientists call this the comfort zone, but that name is deeply misleading, because your comfort zone has nothing to do with comfort. It has everything to do with familiarity. You can be completely miserable inside your comfort zone, and still your brain will choose it over something better but unfamiliar. That is how powerful this programming is. And until you understand it, you will keep fighting yourself and losing without ever knowing why. Let's talk about what's actually happening inside your brain. Inside your brain is a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. Think of it as your brain's alarm system. Its job is to scan every situation and ask one question: are we safe? Thousands of years ago, this system kept human beings alive. It protected our ancestors from tigers, rival tribes, and dangerous environments. But here's the problem. Your brain doesn't always distinguish between physical danger and psychological uncertainty to your nervous system speaking in front of. People can trigger the same alarm as seeing a predator starting a business, can feel as threatening as physical danger. Moving to a new city can activate the same fear response as genuine survival threat. Being deeply loved can feel threatening. Being successful can feel threatening, not because these things are dangerous, but because they're unfamiliar. Now here's something fascinating that neuroscience has discovered. Every time you repeat a behavior, your brain strengthens a neural pathway, like a road that gets wider with more traffic. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity, and your brain is built to make those well-traveled roads as Automatic and effortless as possible, this is beautiful when those roads lead somewhere good, but what happens when those roads lead to anxiety, self-doubt, and limitation? Those roads become highways, and your brain doesn't just use them, it defends them because those highways represent survival to your nervous system, and your brain will fight to protect anything it associates with survival. And here is something that should genuinely stop you in your tracks. If you don't consciously choose to change these highways they choose for you, the brain without direction is a brain on repeat. And the saddest thing in the world isn't failure. The saddest thing in the world is a person who never even tried because their brain quietly convinced them it wasn't safe. Let me give you a real example. Oprah Winfrey, one of the most successful media personalities in history, was fired from her first television job. Her producer told her she was unfit for TV news. Now most people know this story, but what most people don't know is what happened when she finally started succeeding. She felt like an imposter. She questioned whether she deserved it. She wondered when people would find out she wasn't as good as they thought. Here was a woman achieving extraordinary things, and her nervous system was constantly whispering, this doesn't feel normal, something is wrong, because success wasn't familiar, struggle was, and this is exactly what happens to most people. Think about a child who grows up in a home filled with criticism. Nothing they do is ever enough, they're constantly judged, they're constantly compared to others. Over time, their nervous system learns something. Criticism is normal. Appreciation is suspicious. Years later, that child becomes an adult. Someone compliments them. Someone believes in them. Someone says you're talented, and instead of feeling good, they feel uncomfortable. They reject the compliment. They minimize their success. They change the subject. Why? Because appreciation feels unfamiliar, and criticism feels like home. Now imagine someone who grew up in financial struggle. Every month was stressful. Money was always a source of anxiety. Without realizing it, their nervous system learns something: money equals stress. Abundance is suspicious. Years later, they start making more money. Something amazing should happen. They should feel excited, but often that's not what happens. They become anxious. They spend impulsively. They unconsciously make decisions that bring them right back to struggle. Why? Because their brain is doing exactly what it was trained to do. It's returning them to familiar territory. Most people think self-sabotage looks like obvious destruction, drinking too much, quitting too early, making obviously bad decisions. But self-sabotage is much more subtle than that. The first hidden angle is imposter syndrome. This is when you achieve something real and meaningful and then immediately convince yourself you don't deserve it. You think, I just got lucky. They'll find out I don't know what I'm doing. This can't last. Michael Jordan, considered the greatest basketball player of all time, was cut from his high school varsity team. But here's what most people don't know. Even after winning his first NBA championship, Jordan said he carried a quiet fear. A fear that it might be taken away. A fear that maybe he didn't truly earn it. The external success was real, but internally, his nervous system was still catching up. This is imposter syndrome, and it keeps some of the most capable people in the world from fully stepping into what they've built. The second hidden angle is the arrival fallacy. This is the belief that once you achieve something, you'll finally feel okay. Once I lose the weight, I'll feel confident. Once I make the money, I'll feel secure. Once I find the relationship, I'll feel complete. But here's the truth: the nervous system doesn't reset on achievement day. Your internal identity doesn't automatically update when your external life changes. This is why people lose the weight and gain it back, start the business and sabotage it, enter the healthy relationship and destroy it. It's not weakness, it's identity protection. The third hidden angle is the self-worth ceiling. Everyone has an unconscious limit on how much success, love, and happiness they believe they deserve. When your life approaches that invisible ceiling, your nervous system activates. This is too good, something bad must be coming. And then it creates the bad thing itself, not out of malice, out of protection, because it's trying to keep you at a level that feels right. And the painful irony is this: the better your life gets, the more uncomfortable you feel, not because good things are bad, but because you're nervous. System hasn't been taught that good things are allowed. Here's where everything becomes clear. Most people think they make decisions based on logic. They don't. Most decisions are identity-driven. You don't wake up every morning and consciously decide who you're going to be. You simply become the person. Your nervous system already believes you are a person who sees themselves as healthy. Doesn't fight to go to the gym. A person who sees themselves as a reader. Doesn't force themselves to pick up a book. A person who sees themselves as disciplined doesn't negotiate with themselves every morning. Their behaviors are an extension of who they believe they are. This is why changing behavior without changing identity almost never works. You can force yourself to wake up at 5 a.m. You can force yourself to meditate. You can force yourself to work harder, but if deep down you still identify as lazy, unworthy, or incapable, you will eventually return to your old patterns, because your nervous system always tries to remain consistent. With your identity, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your self-concept. Think about this. J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter while a single mother on welfare struggling with depression. She didn't wait to feel like a successful author before she wrote. She acted like a writer when her external circumstances gave her zero reason to believe she was one. She cast votes for a new identity long before the world confirmed it, and that's the secret most people miss entirely. Transformation doesn't begin when your life changes. Transformation begins when you decide quietly, privately, without anyone watching, to act like the person you're becoming. And here is something that might genuinely stop you in your tracks. Before May 6th, 1954, the entire world believed that running 1 mile in under 4 minutes was physically impossible. Doctors published research proving it. Scientists calculated that the human heart simply couldn't handle it. Athletes tried for years and eventually stopped trying, because when the whole world agrees that something is impossible, your nervous system believes it too. Then Roger Bannister, a 25-year-old medical student from Oxford, broke that barrier. And what happened next is the part that changes everything. Within 46 days, another runner broke the exact same record. Within 2 years, over 300 runners had done what the entire world once called physically impossible. Nothing changed about the human body. The lungs were the same, the heart was the same, the legs were the same. The only thing that changed was what people believed was allowed. Fear had built an invisible ceiling, and one person's courage quietly dissolved it for everyone watching. So here is the question this leaves you with. What have you quietly stopped attempting? Not because it's truly impossible, but simply because no one around you has done it yet. What 4-minute mile have you been treating as your permanent ceiling? Ends here. Your brain is not fixed. It is not permanently programmed. Your current personality is not your final identity. Your fears are not permanent. Your habits are not your destiny. Your brain can change, but here's what neuroscience tells us about how it changes. Your brain has something called a default mode network. This is the system that activates when you're not focused on a task. It's the voice in your head when you're in the shower, the thoughts that come when you're lying in bed. And for most people, this network is running old familiar stories. I'm not good enough. I always fail. This won't work. These aren't just thoughts. They're neural highways that your brain travels automatically. You don't choose them. They just happen like muscle memory. But here's the beautiful part. Every time you choose a new behavior, even a small one, you begin building a new road. Every time you go to the gym, you're telling your brain, I am someone who takes care of their body. Every time you speak up for yourself, you're saying, I am someone whose voice matters. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you re-saying, I am someone who can be trusted. These small actions may seem insignificant, but your nervous system is paying attention. And slowly, quietly, it begins updating its definition of normal. So, how do you actually do this? How do you teach your nervous system that success, confidence, and peace are safe here? are 4 exercises that are grounded. In neuroscience, the first one is the 2-minute identity action pick. 1. Behavior that represents the person you want to become, just one and. Commit to doing it for 2 minutes a day, not because 2 minutes will change your life, but because 2 minutes will begin changing your identity. 2 minutes of writing makes you someone who writes 2 minutes of. Movement makes you someone who moves. The goal isn't the action, the goal is the evidence. Evidence that you are becoming someone new, and evidence is the only language your nervous system truly believes. The second one is the identity journal every night. Write down one thing you did today that the old version of you wouldn't have done. It doesn't need to be dramatic. Maybe you spoke up in a meeting. Maybe you chose water instead of soda. Maybe you took a deep breath. Instead of reacting with anger, write it down and then write 3 words. That. Describe the person who would do that. Disciplined, confident, aware. You're not describing who you are, yet you're describing who you're becoming, and your brain doesn't fully know the difference over time. It starts believing you. The third one is the fear inventory. Take out a piece of paper. Write down one thing you've been avoiding. Then ask yourself 3 questions. What am I actually afraid will happen? Is this fear based on real evidence or just unfamiliarity? What would I do if I knew I couldn't fail most of the time? Your fear isn't logical, it's just unfamiliarity dressed in logics. Clothing naming it strips away its power, because fear lives in the dark. The moment you shine a light on it, it becomes smaller than you imagined. The fourth one is evidence stacking. At the end of each week, write down 5 moments where you acted like the person you want to become. Not 5 achievements, 5 moments, small, real, honest moments. When you read them back, your nervous system receives a message: this is who we are now. And slowly the new identity stops feeling foreign. It starts feeling like home. Every person who has ever transformed their life felt afraid. Every entrepreneur who built something remarkable was terrified at some point. Every person who walked away from what was comfortable into what was meaningful felt their heart pounding. Fear is not a stop sign. Fear is a compass. It often points directly at what matters most, because the things that scare you the most are usually the things most connected to who you're trying to become. And here's the curious part: when you start moving toward your fear instead of away from it, something unexpected happens. Curiosity replaces dread. You start asking, what if this works? Instead of what if this fails, you start feeling genuinely interested in who you could become. You start paying attention to your own story, not as a victim watching it happen, but as the author writing it in real time. And then, slowly, something even more surprising arrives: joy, not the joy of achievement, the joy of finally moving, the joy of no longer being frozen, the joy of becoming day by day someone you actually respect. That feeling, that quiet, private satisfaction of knowing you showed up when it was hard, that is something no achievement can give you, only effort can. Now I want you to think about something. Picture yourself 5 years from now. 2 paths exist. On the first path, you do nothing different. You wait for motivation. You wait for the perfect moment. You wait until you feel completely ready. And 5 years from now, you are standing in exactly the same place, same frustrations, same excuses. Same quiet voice in your head, whispering, I should have started back then. On the second path, you begin today, not perfectly, not confidently, not with all the answers, just honestly, just one small step, and 5 years. From now, you are completely unrecognizable, not because life became easier, but because you became someone who no longer needs it to be. The difference between those 2 people is not talent, it is not luck, it is not even discipline. It is one decision made today to stop waiting and begin. You are not broken, you are not lazy, you are not incapable of change. You are simply operating according to what your nervous system believes is normal, and what feels normal can change. Not through information, not through inspiration alone, but through repeated, deliberate, courageous action, taken even when it feels uncomfortable. Every single day, you are either reinforcing your old identity or building a new one. There is no neutral ground. Every choice is a vote, and you don't need a majority to win you, just need to keep voting start with one thing. Today, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready today. Because here's what nobody tells you about becoming a new person: you don't find that person somewhere out there. You build them one small decision at a time, one kept promise at a time, one moment of courage at a time. And one day, not too far from now, you'll look back and barely recognize who you used. 2. Be not because something magical happened, but because you chose quietly and consistently to become someone different, the person you are waiting to become. They're not waiting for permission. They're not waiting for the right moment. They are not waiting for you to feel ready. They're waiting for you to begin.